Aita, drama, secrets, confessions. Welcome to Trove Reddit.
I walked into that diner with an empty stomach and the eyes of the world on me, staring like I was a failure. I only asked for a piece of bread. But no one knew, just a few minutes later, would leave the entire room in stunned silence. People thought I was crazy. They laughed in my face. Someone even sneered, "If you touch that piano, I'll buy you a full dinner." They had no idea, that very moment would unlock the secret I had been hiding my whole life. A secret powerful enough to shatter every prejudice, powerful enough to turn a homeless man into the center of the world. If you want to know what made the whole diner burst into tears when I touched the keys, stick around until the end. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss more stories this insane. That place wasn't some fancy restaurant. It was just a little cafe tucked away on an old street. The wooden chairs were worn, the yellow lights dim, and the smell of food mixed with cigarette smoke. Customers crowded in, laughing and talking loudly, paying no attention to a ragged man who had just walked in. But in the corner, there was something completely out of place. A dusty piano, sitting awkwardly like a meaningless decoration. I stared at it, and it almost seemed like it was staring back at me. People ordered their meals. People chatted away. Only I sat there, stomach growling, eyes locked on the keys. I knew, if I laid my hands on it, everything would change. The question was, how much would it change? I gathered every ounce of courage and walked up to the counter. My voice was hoarse, trembling. "Could I have a little bread? I haven't eaten all day." The room fell silent for a beat. A few eyes flickered with pity. But most stares were filled only with contempt. Someone frowned and whispered, "Just another beggar." A woman sighed, clutching her purse close as if afraid of being robbed. Even the cafe owner stood still, torn between kindness and suspicion. In that moment, I felt as if the whole world was judging me. All I wanted was a piece of food. But no one knew, what I was about to give back to them was worth 1,000 times more. I sat down on the rickety wooden chair, my hands trembling as I held my empty stomach. But my eyes never left the piano in the corner. It was covered in dust, its ivory keys yellowed with age, yet to me, it shone brighter than any meal. A young customer followed my gaze and suddenly burst out laughing. "Old man, if you can play that piano, I'll buy your whole dinner." The cafe erupted in laughter, voices joining in mockery. They thought I was nothing but a fool, a ragged beggar dreaming of being an artist. I didn't answer. I simply laid my calloused hands quietly on the table. In my mind, the old notes I once lived and breathed began to echo again. To them, those words were just a joke. But I knew, the moment my fingers touched the keys, that joke would become a nightmare for every ounce of contempt in the room. Laughter still echoed through the cafe. I stood up. The whole room fell silent for a beat, as if they couldn't believe I dared walk toward the piano. My footsteps were heavy, thudding on the worn wooden floor. Someone whistled to mock me. Another whispered, "Let's see this joke start." I pulled the chair out and sat down in front of the dusty piano. My skinny hands trembled as I rested them on the ivory keys. A tension-filled moment wrapped the entire room. Then, I pressed the first key. Not a wrong note. Not a clumsy sound. But a clear, powerful, and commanding melody. The customer who had challenged me choked on his words. The owner let the towel fall from his hands. The whole cafe went still, no one dared breathe hard. Because at that very second, they realized they had just awakened a monster that had been sleeping inside me. My fingers blazed across the keys like fire. The melodies poured out, not just music, but the sound of memory, of a whole life beaten down. The notes exploded, then fell again like a heavy rain. Each tone ripped through the walls of prejudice surrounding me. The room that had been loud was now dead silent. Phones were set down. The clinking of spoons against glasses vanished. Someone covered their mouth and broke into tears. Another trembled, whispering, "Unbelievable." The faces that had sneered only moments ago were frozen, replaced with absolute awe. I no longer saw the cafe. I no longer felt hunger. There was only me and the piano, merging into a flood that swept away every doubt. And in that moment, the world itself seemed to stop, leaving only the music to carry their hearts. If you want to hear how someone once dismissed as nothing could change an entire room with nothing but his hands, hit subscribe right now. because what comes next holds more secrets than you can imagine. The song ended in a breathless silence. No one clapped. No one could even speak. Then suddenly, a sob broke the stillness. A middle-aged woman near the door covered her face and burst into tears. Next came a shaky round of applause from the far corner. And within seconds, the entire room erupted in claps and cheers, as if they had just witnessed a miracle unfold before their very eyes. The cafe owner stood frozen, his lips moving but no words coming out. The young man who had mocked me now stared at the floor, fists clenched tight, unable to lift his head. An elderly customer trembled. This cannot be just some homeless man. This is a true artist. The heavy air of contempt was gone. In its place, shock, reverence, and a trace of shame. People glanced at one another, whispering, desperately trying to explain what had just happened. But how could it be explained, when a single piece of music had silenced an entire cafe, then erupted like thunder all at once? Amid the thunderous applause, a trembling voice suddenly rose from the back of the cafe. I know him. Every head snapped toward a man in a suit, his face pale with disbelief. He stepped forward, eyes locked on me. There's no mistake, he was once a renowned pianist. The one who vanished after the tragedy years ago. The cafe exploded again, louder than before. Some gasped with their mouths wide open. Others whispered in stunned disbelief. A few scrambled to pull out their phones, searching for old photos to compare. And then, grainy images flickered on their screens. A young pianist, elegant, radiant beneath stage lights. The only difference was that now, that same man stood before them, tattered, worn, and unrecognizable. In that moment, the truth crashed over the room. They hadn't just witnessed a performance. They had witnessed the return of a legend thought lost forever. After that shocking revelation, no one in the room could stay seated. One customer stepped forward and placed a stack of bills on the table before me. Another hurried to gather what little they had to give. An elderly woman pulled off her wool scarf and wrapped it around my shoulders, tears streaming down her face. You cannot live like this anymore. The cafe owner's voice shook as he declared, from this day on, you will never go hungry here. And I will help you find your way back to the stage. The applause thundered again, but this time it wasn't born of surprise. It was reverence, gratitude, and a shared longing to see me reclaim the music I once embodied. A young man raised his phone high, recording with trembling hands, "The world needs to see this." And in that instant, the story broke free from the four walls of a modest cafe. It began to spread, like fire catching on dry wood, igniting hearts that had long grown cold to the struggles of others. From a man once shunned for his poverty, I was now lifted by countless unfamiliar hands. From a plea for bread, I had rediscovered a reason to believe. If you want to keep walking with stories that stir the soul, hit that subscribe button now, because ahead lie miracles you would never expect. That day, I walked into the cafe just to beg for a piece of bread. But when I left, I carried the hearts of everyone inside. My life had once drowned in darkness, branded as nothing but failure. Yet in a single moment, with a single song, I made the world fall silent. They had once laughed at me. Now they stood to applaud. They had once turned their backs. Now they reached out their hands to lift me up again. And I realized, the worth of a human being doesn't lie in tattered clothes or an empty wallet. It lives in the things no one can ever steal: talent, memory, and the fire burning within. And if a homeless man like me could make an entire room bow before the music, then you, too, can rewrite your destiny, starting today.